Be as efficient with our time as possible, right?
Sounds good.
Cool. So hello, everybody. Welcome to our class this week. We're actually lucky that we have a representative from the Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships with us today to discuss a little bit of financial aid and how it works for you as a student in general. But I know that she also has some information on some localized aid and programs that you can tap into to assist you through your time as a student here, and also gives you information on like planning moving forward, right? So we'll have our guest speak to you in a couple of minutes. Melissa's here. I just wanted to let everybody know that journal number 3 is going to be available right after lecture. So I just updated it, but because we started lecture, I'm going to go ahead and wait until we're done so that I can open it up for you all to see. Okay? So do we have any questions for class before we get started with our guest? Y'all can hop in or raise hands. Okay. So cool. This week, right, as I just mentioned, for this class, we have Melissa Orozco joining us today. She comes from the Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships. You all will be thoroughly familiar with that department, probably more so than some of the other departments you'll get to meet during this session. So, you know, please, if you have any questions, try to hang on to them and type them up in the chat. And what we can do is collect some of those questions so that once Melissa has time in the presentation or there's time at the end, we can bring them up for her to answer. Is that okay with you, Melissa?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Okay, so what we'll go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and let you take over the show, Melissa. This is your class from now on.
Okay, awesome. Will you allow me to share my screen?
Oh, yes. I forgot I have to do it like every time. Got it. You should be able to share it now.
Okay, awesome. Great.
Yeah.
So,
can you guys see this okay?
Yeah, I know. I already went
yes, it's loading?
yes.
Yes, can you see it?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, perfect.
I live in Northern California, and I know
I'm not sure if someone's maybe
get down
talking.
to the hard one, and so she sent me this paper script. I know Kaiser's ridiculous with it.
Yeah, can I have you guys mute yourselves, please?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they're very hard to get hold of.
Actually get a hold of a nurse.
Okay.
I don't know if they can hear me.
Are you guys able to get
Mario, you should have access to mute them, whoever they are.
I'm trying to right now. I'm trying to figure out who it is.
I think we're mute the whole class at once.
If you don't mind, you can go ahead and get started.
Okay, that's okay. So hi everyone, my name is Melissa Orozco. I work at the Financial Aid Office. Today I'm just going to be giving a general financial aid presentation to get you familiar with some of the resources that we have on campus and at our office. Okay, so we're going to be talking, I'm going to give a little bit introduction about myself and how I got to work at the Financial Aid Office, some of the services we have, and I'm going to be talking about loans just because I specifically used to work with managing student loans, and then we'll have time in the end for some questions. So just to begin with, my name is Melissa Orozco. I'm a UCSB alumni. I graduated last spring, and with a BA in Environmental Studies with an outside concentration in Sociology. So I know you might be questioning why I'm working at the financial aid office if my major is completely different. Well, I'm a first generation college student. I'm an immigrant. When I came to UCSB, I had no idea how to manage expenses, what financial aid was. It was a lot of figuring it out myself. And so my second year, I got my first job. I moved off campus, and I was dealing with a lot of things that paying rent, these finances that I was not knowledgeable about. So what I did is that I applied to become a financial aid peer advisor. So throughout my undergraduate career, I worked from 2017 through 2019 as a financial aid peer advisor. Prior to getting this job, I was working at a Michael's craft store, and I was working around 30 hours, and I was doing overnight shifts every week for a year while being a full-time student. So I knew that this was not a sustainable way to, not be navigating higher education, because I was really, working a lot and not focusing on my, classes as much as I should have, especially with overnight shifts. So that's why working at the financial has really helped me. And I've gained immense amount of knowledge. So when I graduated, I decided to apply to be a direct loan assistant at the financial aid office. So that's how I became more knowledgeable about direct loans, managing student loans. Currently, I'm actually transitioning over, since we've been working remote, my position has transitioned to becoming an advisor role. So some of my responsibilities are changing. We'll talk about that later. But while I was in school, I started working at the financial aid office. So I did my research on which loans to take out. Throughout my 4 years at UCSB, I took out 13K in subsidized loan. This is a loan that does not accrue any interest while you're in school. And I took out a Perkins loan. This loan no longer exists, but it's also subsidized, meaning that no interest accrued. So by the time that I graduated UCSB, I had my loans and no interest had accrued. And I know some of you guys are going to be first-time loan borrowers, so I'll be discussing further about what loans are and the different interest rates. Okay, so now I always want to bring up FAFSA and DREAM applications. Make sure that next year you apply for a financial aid application. We have 2 FAFSA or DREAM application. The applications do open up October 1st for the next academic year, and the priority deadline is the same for both applications. It's March 2nd of every academic year. If you have questions of which application you are eligible for, you can always contact our financial aid office and we'll discuss which one you're eligible for. I think by now most of you guys are familiar with which one you would be able to apply for. So moving forward, so I'm assuming a lot of you guys have your award letters. I know Mario likes to discuss your award letters, but I want to talk a little bit about where the funding sources come from. So your financial aid award letters are made of different funding sources. One might be university grants. We also have federal aid, such as federal Pell Grant or federal direct loans. We have state. So if you have a middle class scholarship or a Cal Grant, just know that these come from the state of California. And then we have private, right? Private scholarships. Those are the ones that you apply for. So these are the 4 funding sources that make up your award letter. So moving forward here, to look at your official award letter, this is our financial aid website. To log in, you just log into My Aid status. You should be able to see in the 2020-2021 academic year. Once you see your official award letter, if you have any questions, you can always join. We're all working remote, but you can join our queue list, our callback option. If you see here on the join the line, all you have to do is put your name, per number, phone number, and you're going to join our queue. And when there's a few minutes, a financial representative can go ahead and reach out to you and call you back and answer your questions. When you log into My Aid status, I always like to go over this because it has a lot of information that may answer some of the questions you may have. For example, here in your dashboard, you can see if you were selected for verification. When you submit a DREAM or FAFSA application, a certain percentage of students get selected to verify their FAFSA information or DREAM information. And this happens every year. So hopefully most of you guys have already finished submitting verification documents. If you haven't, you can always call our financial aid office so we can go ahead and help you. A new tool that's on the dashboard is the satisfactory academic progress. So this here will help you keep progress of your financial aid and to be in good standing with us. To be in good standing and meet SAP, you have to have a cumulative GPA of 2.0, and your PACE, which is the units that you completed over the units transfer, has to be at least 67%. So what we do is that we're very transparent. So we added this tool where you can always look at your GPA, and this is going to be updated every quarter. But you'll see here, you'll see the percentage of PACE, the classes that you pass. As long as you're above 67%, you're always going to be satisfactory. Your GPA will also be on there. If your GPA is going to drop below 2.0 for a certain quarter, you might have to do a SAP appeal. But these are things that our office will communicate with you if you're required to do so. Another thing that you can find on your dashboard is the consent to release. So if you ever want to have a third party access your financial information or call for you, let's say you have a brother, a parent, a sibling that has questions about your financial aid, what I recommend is that you give them consent, and all you have to do is put down their name, create a passphrase, and then every time they call in regards to your financial aid information, we'll ask them for the passphrase, and that's the way that we'll talk to them. Without giving consent to anyone, no one can access your financial aid information. It's confidential to only you. Let me go ahead and see if there's a chat. Any questions for me? Can you guys hear me okay, Mario?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so moving forward, okay, so on my aid status, you're also going to see the disbursements tab. So this tab is really important for you to see every quarter when your financial aid is going to disperse. So for example, for fall quarter, the fee payment deadline is September 15th. If you go on the disbursements tab, it'll tell you if your aid has dispersed, and it'll say if it went to your BARC account. Another thing that you can see is if you have to do a SAP appeal, it would also tell you that you have pending requirements. For your loans, if you have any requirements to do, it'll tell you right here that there's a hold, okay? For financial aid, the aid will disperse 10 days. All your grant aid and the loans that you have accepted will automatically disperse into your BARC account 10 days before each quarter begins. Many of you guys have checked, your fall fees should be posted on your BARC account already. We usually recommend that students sign up for direct deposit. And basically what this is, if you have a refund coming in, let's say you have enough grants and loans to pay your fall quarter fees where there's going to be leftover amount of money, this amount of money is going to get refunded to you. If you don't set up your direct deposit through BARC, you're going to get it as a check to your permanent address. Setting up the Gaucho e-bill is super easy. You're just going to put your bank information, routing number, and any direct deposit would go straight to your bank account. So that's something that we usually recommend students do. Okay, so now we're going to talk about 3 different types of student loans. We have the federal, institutional, and private student loans. So to begin with, I'm going to talk a little bit about federal direct student loans. So there are 2 types of federal direct student loans, the subsidized and unsubsidized. So both of these loans come from are funded by the federal government, and the amount that you get depends on your class level, right? So as a first year, the maximum amount that you can get for a subsidized loan is $5,500. So I know I'm talking about these type of loans, but everyone has different financial situations, so your award letters might be completely different from each other. So right now, I'm just going to give general information about the 2. For the subsidized loan, the government pays the interest until the end of the grace period. So this means that no interest will accumulate while you're in school and you're enrolled in at least half time. And half time is like 6 units. This federal subsidized loan has a grace period of 6 months, and grace period is the time between you graduate until you actually have to start repaying your student loans. So this gives you time, after you graduate to, find a job, get yourself sorted out after graduation until you actually have to start repaying your loans. The interest rates right now for both of these loans are record low. This is the lowest they've been in 10 years. It's 2.75% and it's fixed. moving on to the unsubsidized loan, unlike the subsidized one, this one does accrue interest while you're in school, so that's something to keep in mind. It also has the same grace period and the same interest rate as the subsidized loan. And federal interest rates do differ year to year, but it's a fixed interest rate for the lifetime of the loan. So right now for this year, they're going to be 2.75%. Next academic year, the Department of Education will release the new interest rates that will be applied to those loans. Okay, and then we also have federal direct plus loans. So for students that are considered dependent students, you may be offered a parent plus loan. And so this is a loan that parents actually apply for. Unlike the subsidized and unsubsidized that you're guaranteed to receive, the plus loan is a loan that your parents would apply for through studentaid.gov, and it runs a credit check based on their credit history and any adverse credit. For example, if your parents have maybe recent bankruptcies, you get a credit decision right away. You're notified. And so your parents either approved or denied. And so if they're approved, then that's great. They can get up to the max amount that's reflected in your award letters. The parent and graduate plus loan, they both accrue interest while you're in school, so that's something to keep in mind. The graduate plus loan, it's only for graduate students, and the parent plus loan is for undergraduate students. This parent plus loan also has a grace period of 6 months until your parents actually have to start repaying it after you graduate. And the interest rate also significantly dropped. Now it's 5.30%, and it's a fixed interest rate. So as I mentioned, the application process, it's going to studentaid.gov, submitting an application, getting notified of your credit decision. And if your parents are denied, there are definitely options that you can do. If your parents are denied, you can request additional unsubsidized loan, or they can pursue an endorser. For these situations, I think it would be best to contact the financial aid office to see what's better for you. If your parents should go ahead and pursue an endorser, or if it's best to for you to request additional unsubsidized loan. Okay, so moving a little forward, we're going to talk about institutional loans. So there are two different types of institutional loans that we offer. One is the UCSB loan. This one does not accrue interest until the end of the grace period. So again, it's subsidized. The grace period is 9 months, and the interest rate is 5%. So previously I mentioned that I took out a Perkins loan. This is a federal loan that used to be offered back then, but the government defunded it, so it doesn't exist anymore. So what UCSB did is that we created our own institutional loan that replicates the Perkins loan. So that's why that you can see that the interest rate is different and the grace period is different than the federal loans. We also have dream loans. So this dream loan does not accrue any interest as well until the end of the grace period. And this one replicates the federal loans, right? So it has the same interest rate and the same grace period. Okay, and now the last loan that I'm going to talk about are private student loans. So private student loans are not funded from the federal government. They're not from the institution. They're from private lenders, right? And some of these names might sound familiar to you, such as Sallie Mae, Wells Fargo, Discover. They all have private student loans that students can apply for. And there are numerous reasons why a student would apply for a private student loan. And, it can range from a parent not being able to take out a parent plus loan. It can be you're an independent student and you don't get offered a plus loan, so you have a gap in your award letter, or if you're not meeting satisfactory academic progress, for example, and you did not submit an appeal to get financial aid, you might take out a private student loan to pay for that quarter. So there's numerous reasons. But private student loans are very different than institutional and federal loans because they have different interest rates, right? They may be fixed and variable. Most of these private student loan lenders require credit checks for the student borrower. And, as a college student, you might have not established credit yet. So I would say that most of them also require for you to have a co-signer. That's usually a parent or a family member. Interests vary by lender, but our UC system has created a UC lender list, and you can find this in our financial aid website under the loans tab. You'll see the UC lender list hyperlink there. And basically it'll take you to this picture that I have here. It'll basically list all the lenders that are reliable, that, you know, we work with, most common for students. But as you know, these are not all the private student loan lenders available. It's just a list to get you started in your research. And what's cool about the UC lender list is that you can sort it based on if you're looking for a fixed interest rate, if you're looking for variable interest rates, a range between how much you need to take out. So that's something to check out if you're interested in taking out a private student loan. Most of the private student loans that I certified are not subsidized, meaning that they do require, they do accrue interest while you're in school. Some even, you have to make monthly payments, minimum payments of around $25 to be paying the interest while you're in school. So it just depends on the lender. But if you just have questions about this, you know, we can definitely set up an appointment and talk about private student loans if that's a route that you want to explore. One of the benefits about private student loans is that they do not require students to be meeting satisfactory academic progress, right? So let's say maybe you didn't do as good in a quarter, and you didn't submit a SAP appeal on time, and now you have a balance in your BARC account with no financial aid. Private student loans such as Sally Mae don't require students to be in good financial aid standing. So that's when a private student loan can be an option for you. Another benefit is, for example, in the summer, if you just need one class, usually classes are, you know, 4 units, and to get financial aid, it's 6 units. So you might not be eligible for financial aid. So sometimes students will take out a private student loan instead, just to pay for that summer course that they need to graduate. Again, it depends from different scenarios, but if you think that maybe private student loans is something that you're interested in, definitely we can set up a schedule, a meeting. Okay, so managing student loans. As I previously said, I used to be the direct loan assistant, so I'm very familiar with, you know, managing student loans and advising students. So there's 3 things that I'd like to tell students. If you guys have never borrowed federal loans, institutional loans, I think this is going to be very informative of how to keep track of your loans. So the first thing is to know your loan servicer and make an account. So if you take out only federal loans, the Department of Education is going to assign you a third-party loan servicer, right? And these are just a couple that I listed, like Great Lakes, Navient. My student loans are with OSLA. So you get assigned a third-party loan servicer, and that's who you make your payments to. You can find out federal loans for your loan servicers by logging into studentaid.gov. It'll tell you who your loan servicer is. You can even click on that link on there, and it'll take you to their website. So make an account with them. For institutional loans, like the UCSB and Dream loans, since those are institutional aid, institutional loans, your loan servicer will always be Heartland ECSI. And they're very good about emailing students to create their accounts. So I'm sure you guys are not going to forget that. And then private loans, your loan lender is your loan servicer. So if you take out a private student loan with Wells Fargo, that's who you're going to be making your payments to. So as a first-time federal loan borrower, I would recommend to become familiar with who your loan lender is right away. That way it's not, you know, a month before you graduate and you're figuring out, you know, repayment, and, you know, you're going to have a lot of things to be focused on by the time that you're graduating. So we want to make you comfortable with your student loans and repayment before you get to that place. The next advice that I give is borrow only what you need. So let's say that for fall quarter, you accept all your student loans and then you get a refund. And, you know, you actually don't really need the refund because you have a job. You can always cancel or reduce the federal loans or institutional loans that you have accepted. Just keep in mind that you have 120 days to cancel your loans. So let's say if you took out your loan fall quarter, you have to keep in mind that it's 120 days until you can cancel it. But we do send emails from our office to remind you of this. Another tip that I have is, if possible, you should pay the interest rate off your unsubsidized loans while in school. And I'll discuss this in a further slide why this is important. The next thing is, before graduating, I would suggest to meet with a financial aid representative to talk about, repayment plans and calculate monthly minimum payments. So this is something that I do more spring quarter when seniors are about to graduate. They are, planning to start repayment in 6 months when the grace period is over. So what I do is that I meet with seniors and I talk about, if they found a job, what their expected income is going to be. If they haven't found a job, we can talk about income-driven repayment plans. So it's something that we can definitely discuss through appointments. So moving a little bit forward, I want to talk about how interest is accrued for the unsubsidized loans, just because this is a question that I get very often. I think there's students know that interest is going to accrue, but they don't really have an idea of how this happens or how much. So I want to give you an example here. So interest, let's say you take out your unsubsidized loan for $2,000. Interest is going to accrue daily on the loan. It doesn't accrue on the previous interest accrued. So I know this is going to get, this is a lot of math here, but I think my point at the end is going to, I'm going to make my point across at the end. So the example that I have here is a student took out an unsubsidized loan for $2,000. The interest rate is 2.75, right? So to calculate the daily interest that is accrued, you have to divide the interest rate by the days in a year to find the daily interest. And then you multiply that times the loan that you took out, and now you have how much is accrued daily. When you multiply that by 30 days, and the reason I put 30 days is so you can see in 1 month how much interest is accrued. So that's only $4.52. So what I recommend is for students to pay this, if they can, every month, and you can set up auto pay, because what happens when you graduate is that your loans are going to be capitalized. And what does that mean? That means that if you don't pay the interest while you're in school, the interest that's been accruing for the 2 years that you guys are here will be added to your principal balance. And when that happens, that means that now you're going to be accruing interest on the loan that you originally accepted and the interest that had been accumulated. But if you pay it off every month, and that's around $4.50, by the time that you graduate, you've already paid off all your interest, so it's not going to capitalize. So you're still just going to have the $2,000, right? So that's very beneficial for you. Again, this is only if you could make the payment. In a year, just to give you the difference, right? In a year, you would accrue $55 in interest on a loan that's $2,000. Students have a lot of questions about this. It depends on the loan, so you're going to take out how much. So again, if you have questions about this, we can definitely set up an appointment. I have an Excel, a loan amortization Excel that I use with students so they can see, give them an idea of how much, what their minimum payments will be, how much interest they'll be paying. So if you have questions, please feel free to reach out. Okay, so now I also when I meet with students, I also use a budget planner to plan their expenses. And the reason I like using these budgets is because, we don't want you guys to borrow what you don't need. So something as simple as this, and this can be found in our financial aid website as well, but something as simple as this can help you calculate how much loans you actually need, right? By listing your work income, all the grants that you're getting every quarter, the loans you're accepting. Maybe your parents are going to help you a bit. You have the income that you're going to get every quarter, and then you calculate your expenses, and then it gives you, a remaining balance that you'll have to allocate for personal expenses. Again, if you want to meet with someone regarding budgeting, you can join our line at our office, and we can run this with you and calculate how much you need to take out in student loans. Okay, so now I wanted to talk about something that you guys might have offered in your award letter, and this is work study. So we get a lot of questions about what work study is. So basically, it's a need-based form of financial aid that you earn through on or some off-campus jobs, and you receive in form of a paycheck. So your work study funds, if you do have it in your award letter, it's basically, I see it as an incentive for you to get hired at a job, right? Because you're a better financial deal because part of the money that you're making, your paycheck, comes from the work study fund, and the other part will come from your employer, right? And so students that have work study are a better financial deal because the employer doesn't have to pay 100% of what you're making. Another cool thing about work study is that you don't get taxed. So that's another benefit for students, right? And so to find a job, I don't know if maybe Mario has talked about this already, a website called Handshake. And Handshake lists all the on-campus jobs available. It's how I found my job at the financial aid office when I was a student. So I think this would be beneficial to look at if you are interested in getting a job. And I know the question right now is a lot of you guys are going to be either staying back home. A lot of jobs and departments on campus are still hiring students, and they have remote work for them. So you can definitely take a look at that if you're interested in working. Oops. So now I'm going to talk about some resources at UCSB. And I've mentioned some of these earlier. But one of the things that we have are one-on-one appointments via Zoom or a phone call. And this is to talk more about, student loans, budgeting, low repayment, loan forgiveness, managing your debt. If you have taken out federal student loans before and maybe you're interested in how to defer payments or anything like that, you can always contact either me or the direct loan analyst, and we can go ahead and set up a schedule with you. And so another question that we get is about scholarships. Do we have any scholarships available? So if you notice that all the grant aid and loans that you're getting are based on your expected family contribution, right? And these are need-based scholarships that you're receiving. If you have a high EFC, maybe you're not eligible for some of those grants that other students are. But we have, and this is a new tool we have called Scholarship Universe, and it's basically a platform that matches you with scholarships based on your FAFSA answers and your GPA, your major, some of your interests. So if you go ahead and you can access this through our financial aid website, if you go to the scholarships tab, you'll see Scholarship Universe, and it allows you to keep track of the scholarships that you've applied. So I really highly recommend that you guys take a look at this and use it because there are a lot of opportunities out there and thousands of dollars that you could be applying for every year. Okay, another thing that I wanted to talk about is basic needs resources. So basic needs, and I added the website here, is basically a platform where you are exposed to a lot of the resources that we have on campus. So this picture here is from the basic needs resource website. If you click on it, for example, if you're at any point want to talk about food security, right? You can go here and it'll tell you about the different pantries around UCSB and in Isla Vista that give free food to students. You can pick up at any time. At the UCEN, there is a food pantry. So all these different boxes that you hear are different resources. And so I do want to talk about CalFresh. So CalFresh, eligible students can receive up to $194 a month for groceries. So CalFresh is basically EBT for students, and it's really popular here at UCSB. When I was a sophomore, I applied for CalFresh, and I never had to pay for groceries every month. And if I didn't use up the $194 each month, it would just roll over to the next month. There are CalFresh advocates at UCSB that can assist you through the whole application process and walk you through to see if you're eligible to receive CalFresh. I mentioned before we have food pantries, and we also have a technology and access. Because of working remote, there might be options for you to have access to Wi-Fi. Earlier in or later last year, spring quarter, when the whole pandemic started happening, we did rent out laptops to students that didn't have access to laptops. So, we do have a lot of resources on campus. So I highly recommend that you check out this website here. So a little bit more about CalFresh. So basically you apply for CalFresh, and I have listed here where that you can sign up for an advocate to reach out reach out to you. But basically, if you apply for CalFresh, you know, the academic year is 9 months. That's $1,746 that you can get for just groceries. And you can use this at Trader Joe's, even 7-Eleven, the Co-op in Isla Vista, Smart and Finals, and you don't have to worry about paying for groceries, which is a really cool resource to have. Following, I also want to talk about the Financial Crisis Response Team. So the UCSB Financial Crisis Response Team is a resource, and they're located at our financial aid office to assist students in a financial crisis. And this can be, you know, if at any point you're dealing with a housing issue, food insecurity, or unforeseen financial expenses, especially right now with the pandemic. You know, a lot of the students weren't able to work, so the financial crisis team reaches out to them, and, you know, we're able to assist either through pointing you towards the right direction, maybe an emergency grant. So if you're ever in a situation that you know you're going to be in a crisis, I highly recommend that you contact the crisis team so we can go ahead and assist you. All you have to do is email them at this email here, and they respond within 24 to 48 hours. And it's available to undergraduate and graduate students. Okay, another program that I like to talk about, and it's really great, it's part of AS, Associated Students. It's the Community Financial Fund Grant Program. So basically what they do is that they host quarterly financial literacy workshops. So you can talk about, you know, moving off campus, auto loans, mortgage, investments, IRAs, student loans. They have multiple financial literacy workshops throughout the quarter. And what you do is that they send out an email every quarter, and there's a certain pass time. So these have become very popular where it's hard to get into one of these workshops. But when you do and you attend the workshop, take a financial literacy quiz, write a short essay, you get a $320 grant just for attending a workshop, which I think is great. You know, as a student, you're gaining knowledge and you're getting a grant just to attend. And these are offered on a quarterly basis. So if you see an email from it is talking about the Community Financial Fund, I highly recommend that you guys try to sign up for them. You know, students really enjoy them and they're great. I've presented about managing student loans with them for spring quarter, and they're a really great student-led program. So I wanted to ask if you guys have any questions. I know I share a lot of information. I try to get through everything to have question time at the end.
I've been monitoring chat and answering wherever I could.
Okay.
To help.
Sorry, I couldn't see the chat.
No, it's okay. I understand how it goes too. That's why I was telling you.
Yeah.
To moderate. But there was this final question that you were talking about with CalFresh that had to do if we could use it outside of California. Do you have any information on that?
I am not sure about that, but I can definitely get the answer for you.
That would be helpful.
Yeah.
Because I know that there's different circumstances, right? There's whether you're a resident of California and qualify for CalFresh, and then you might need to travel out of state.
Right.
Right. There might be some restrictions on whether you can use those funds. But I'm also thinking if you're an out-of-state student, right, there might be some state program that mirrors or is equivalent to like CalFresh.
From your state, yeah, from the state,
right.
Yeah. So I can find that information. If there is anyone that's out of state, feel free to reach out to me and I can connect you with the CalFresh advocate so they can see if you're eligible or if they know of any other resources that maybe mirror CalFresh from your state.
We had a student asking if you wouldn't mind sharing that last slide.
Yeah, so let me go ahead and share my screen one more time. So the last slide about the Community Financial Fund, correct?
Yes.
Yes. And I can definitely, I think I've sent you this presentation before, Mario, but you can share with your students because I do have links on them and that'd be easier for them to go ahead and have that information.
That'd be great. I had somebody ask me earlier and I told them we were recording the lecture, but as far as resource, it would be easier for them to handle. Thank you.
Was me.
we did have a question from Patrick.
Mhm.
He wanted to know if you're already set up with CalFresh, is the student CalFresh program different? Would they need to reapply?
No, it would be, if you're already getting CalFresh, it's the same thing. You have the EBT card, Patrick? Yes. So that's basically the program that I was talking about. And then
There was a student that asked about loans. Is there a deadline to accept loans for the fall?
no, there's not a deadline. So you'll have your loans available throughout the whole year. So let's say fall quarter, you don't want to accept them yet. Maybe your grants, you're not moving in on campus, so your fall expenses are cheaper. You don't have to accept your loans until you're ready to accept them or when you need them.
Would you be able to give us an idea of what the turnaround time might be? Because
Mhm.
also, right, as a student, you get into a situation where you're planning and you're like, I
Right.
might need those funds for, let's say, Christmas rent money,
Yeah.
right? So school's going
Yeah.
to be out of break. How soon should they be
Definitely.
considering?
So as I mentioned earlier, and I think maybe I didn't discuss this, but to accept your student loans, you can do it through my aid status on the student loan tab. And all you have to do is put down the number that you want to accept. So let's say you want to accept 1,000. Within automatically our system will get the request, and within I would say 3 to 2 days, you should see it in your Bark account. So it's within a week, less than a week, you'll get your student loan.
Perfect.
Mhm.
Thank you. Um, for work study,
Mhm.
a student wants to know what the amount means on the award letter, and
Mhm.
is it a maximum amount that we get per quarter? Or
Yes, that's a very good question. So for work study, just think of it as a regular job. You're getting a paycheck from your employer, but where the money is coming from, some of it is from your work study funds that you're being awarded, and some of it's from your employer. So even if you're offered just $2,001 or 3,000 work study, doesn't mean that that's the only amount that you can make. Okay.
and then
So,
that there's also the option, right, where like I'm not certain if this is what you were just mentioning, but where they might be able to add on work study to if they find a certain job or employment that offers that opportunity. Is that still available?
To or like appeal for work study if they don't have it offered, or
Well, let's say they have that the certain amount that they get. I think it's 2,000
Mhm.
max, right? Is there any way that an employment might be able to increase their work study, or is it just
Yeah, so when I was a peer advisor, I was working a lot, so I exhausted my work study funds actually, and all I had to do was contact my employer, and I submitted a work study appeal, and they were able to increase it. Mario, my laptop is low battery. I'm just gonna run and get my charger.
okay? No problem.
I'll be back.
That's fine. I just saw a question come in, so I go ahead and take care of it while you're away.
Thank you.
So does financially change if you live off campus? The university has different models of equations that they use for whether you are considered on campus or off campus. And depending on how you are designated from your registration, right, you're going to receive a slightly different looking award letter. If you go to the financial aid office on the website, you can see some estimates on how it works, right? Depending on if you're off campus or on campus, the differences in the total amount of aid that you would be offered is where it comes in. So if you're living off campus versus on campus, you might be paying less money for rent. Um, Depends on the estimated equations that are used by the offices from year to year whenever they audit. Um, is that accurate, Melissa? From
Hi, sorry, were you talking about living on campus and off campus?
Yeah, I had a student asking if there was any if financially changed if they live
Y-
off campus. So I was
Yeah.
explaining to them the different models for
Mm-hmm.
funding that the office uses.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So living on campus and living off campus have different budgets, right? Because living on campus is a little bit more expensive. You'll see, and you can see on our financial aid website under the cost of attendance tab, you'll see the difference in budgets, right? And when budgets change, so does your financial aid, right? So you might not be paying for on-campus housing in your BARC account, and because your budget's going to be smaller, your aid might reduce. But in the end, it's actually a little bit more feasible because you're only going to be charged for tuition, campus-based fees, and if you have UCSB healthcare insurance, right? And so if you have a question about that, and I know that's super common right now with the pandemic and most of us are staying home for fall quarter, your fall aid, if you're staying home, might be different than your winter and spring if you decide to come back to UCSB. Assuming that students will be able to move in winter quarter, we'll go ahead and increase your budgets for winter and spring if you're moving on campus. So I know this information is very tentative, but financial aid does change depending on where you're going to be living.
Right, and that's a good point. Even beyond that, right, if your financial situation, dependent or independent, changes,
Mm-hmm.
financial aid can work with you throughout the year. It's not like once the school year starts, that's it. Nothing
Right.
we moved around, which is great that you bring up.
Mm-hmm.
There's a student that asks, how does the university know that they've transitioned from off campus to on campus?
Yeah, that's a good question. So how the housing department here at UCSB will send financial aid office a list of students that are living on campus. And this is, if you've signed a contract, I know housing has been sending emails to students. We'll get that data from housing, and that's how we update award letters.
Yeah, it's a very greased wheel that operates between the different student affairs departments, right? You have registrar, you
Mm-hmm.
have the bursar's office, you have financial aid, and everyone needs to communicate with each other in order to know, right? In order to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that the student is in the best situation financially. And
Correct.
so it's great that you have these options because um, even through a pandemic, right? Institutionally, you're making adjustments for students. There's still a need for
Mm-hmm.
student employment, and so there's still a capacity for things to change, and that's part of what we want you all to be accustomed to is communicating is a changing situation. Now, this is going to bring in a lot of work for your office this year. I know it will, but I think that you all are equipped with the right folks and institutionally the right people to help you kind of wade through those times. It's just a matter of making sure that students also stay on top of communicating,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, and if you know that's going to be the case for you, let's say you're staying home fall quarter and winter quarter comes around and housing does, you know, allow students to move back in, you can definitely self-identify in our office and give us a heads up. Hey, can you make sure that I'm budgeted for on campus for winter quarter? Let's say you need that assurance, you can definitely contact our office.
how would drop in a class affect financial aid after disbursement?
That's a very, very good question. So something that you're gonna get emails from us about too, and I keep referencing our emails, but they really do have a lot of important deadlines and information. But there's a thing called census date, and it happens every quarter. And it's on our financial aid website under calendar. So on census date, we take a screenshot of all students and their enrollment. So we want to make sure that you're in full time. So for example, I don't know if you're getting maybe Cal Grant or Pell Grant, but these two grants are sensitive to your enrollment. You have to be in full time to keep your financial aid. If by census date, let's say you're in half time, we'll have to reduce your Cal Grant and Pell Grant by half because that's your enrollment, right? So you guys want to make sure that on census date, you guys are enrolled in full time, so your financial aid does not change. And if you want, Mario, I can send you a link to see the census dates just so students are on the loop with that.
That's funny because that's a great that's a great bit of information to keep track of, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially as they're balancing their their unit load right in their
Mm-hmm.
transition. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things where it's good to know what you need because there's also a yearly demand, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
you have to keep track of the quarterly and the overall
That's
yearly
correct.
requirements to your budget. Let me, uh, the next question was, is financially doing Zoom sessions?
So Zoom sessions, do you mean like just general, like when you have questions or
I believe for appointments is what
for
they mean.
appointments? Yeah, so I'm usually the person that does, like, if you have like maybe it's not a general financial aid question that you can call our office, you can set up a Zoom meeting with me. I do Zoom meetings or call appointments. But if it is just a general question, you would sign in using the join the line tool that I was mentioning earlier. And then a financial representative can just give you a call back. Or you can also email our financial aid our general email and request a Zoom meeting if you prefer that.
Cool. Are there any final questions that y'all would like to ask our guests before we take off?
Hmm. I did.
Somebody asked, how can they make an appointment with you? Do you have a
Yeah,
direct link?
yeah, of course. I'll send Mario. Mario has my email. He can share that with you guys. And you guys just reach out, let me know what your eligibility is like, and we can talk more about some of the topics that I spoke about.
You know what? In your presentation,
Hmm.
you have your contact email, right?
Yes.
So if once I get the presentation
Hmm.
and I upload it, students will have a direct way of messaging you
Yeah.
with that email as well. And I'll remind them
Yes.
if need be.
Okay. Sounds good.
Anyone else? Do we have? I'll be sending an email out to the class later on. Once the presentation is emailed to me,
Hmm.
I'll go ahead and send out an email to the class and attach it to you, and then also have it available on Gaucho Space in case you need reference to it later.
Sounds good.
So it looks like our students um, have had their fair share of questions answered. Thank
Okay.
you so much for providing us some time and your knowledge in terms of financial aid. I know we'll still continue to talk about some of these terms and issues. So um, I'm glad they got to meet someone from the office
Hmm.
so they can start making that personal connection and
Yeah.
feel comfortable, in this transition pandemic and just transferring in. It's two huge stresses you usually don't combine, right?
Yeah, so great job, guys. And thank you, Mario, for having me. I love giving these presentations. And you guys will have my point of contact so you guys can ask me questions you may have.
Perfect. And we'll be seeing you Thursday for the other class, right?
Yes.
Awesome,
Bye. Bye,
Melissa.
guys.
Thank
Have
you
a
so
great
much.
day.
Cool. So class-wise, do you all have any questions for me? I will be providing you for contact information, today's presentation um, in an email, and you will also have it on Gaucho Space as I mentioned, and then you'll also have the lecture video to go to. So hopefully you have enough options if you ever need any type of reference for today's presentation. So one thing to note is that, no, as I mentioned earlier, the journal, I'll make it available once class is over. Then I can go into Gotcha Space and do it. Shoot, I lost my train of thought. What was I saying? As far as this class, right? For this week, we had our financial aid presentation today. Thursday, we're gonna do breakout rooms as we did last week, so you all can have an opportunity to discuss some of these financial aid terms and situations amongst you. I'll also have a prompt prepared so you all can kind of guide your discussion then. So any questions that might pop up between today and Thursday, they're all fair play for our next discussion as we meet in a group or in the larger class. Is that cool? I think I just saw something pop up. Okay, so this is a good question. If you missed the deadline to submit your journals, email your TA that you are specifically assigned to alphabetically, right? contact them and try to get them your responses as soon as possible. Again, we're understanding that there are unique situations. Just make sure that you're contacting them directly. They have a more focused list of students, so they can answer you more quickly than I might be able to. I'll have a general email that all students email me to. So there's times that I have like 30 or 40 emails between both classes, and it'll be easier / faster if you communicate with your TA directly sometimes. That's just me trying to help you out so you don't feel like you're wasting your time or I'm not answering as quickly as you might need as well. Okay. Let me see. Is a discussion required to participate every? Well, the discussion is a part of how the class is set up, right? So our class is meant to be 2 lecture discussions every week. And as I mentioned before, I'm not keeping attendance um, for grading purposes, but in terms of overall effect of the class and understanding of future discussions as well as assignments, it's in your best interest if you can show up to show up, but if you can't, to at least look back at the videos so that you can get the information from like our presenters today. This information um, might not otherwise be available if you weren't in person, right? So if we weren't on Zoom and they showed up to our class, we wouldn't have a video presentation. We would just have the PowerPoint presentation. So hopefully giving you that extra avenue helps you out, right? But again, if you can, try to make our discussions that way. If you have questions, we can try to answer those directly as well. Regarding jobs, Handshake for work study, right, is available through career services. Once you go on there, you'll start noticing jobs rotate in and rotate out. And this will happen throughout the year. So different people are going to begin employing in the fall, like financial aid, for instance. Their employment process begins very early I think after week 3 or week 4, they open up their application process. And then a department like EOP, they won't begin recruiting or any kind of employment until the latter part of the year towards spring. And so there's going to be jobs available throughout the year. It just depends on the departments and who's hiring at different parts. So you always want to keep Handshake available on your list of websites that you visit. That way you can just keep refreshing it to see when new opportunities are available. Mind you, if you get one job, it doesn't keep you from obtaining a second job, right? So long as you can handle your responsibilities, you're limited, I believe, to like 20 hours a week of work study, of student employment in general. So as an undergraduate student, you're not supposed to work more than 20 hours a week. And if you're getting work study from the university, right, you might have one job and say, hey, I'm only getting 7, 8 hours there. That isn't enough. And then you can get a second job, right? So long as you still have money in your work study, you can get those jobs, get hired. Once you run out of work study, it's up to that department. See whether or not they have funding to keep you on under their own budget, right? But there's different ways of approaching work study, especially for those of you that might have to work a few more hours than others, you know. But there's definitely opportunities throughout the year. So even as your situation changes, you think you only need one class in the fall. I mean, one job in the fall, and then spring comes up, and you're like, man, I could really use that second job, especially for the summer. There's always something available through Handshake. Something else, if you find a job in the community that through an internship or something, and you want to get it transferred in as a work study job, there is a chance that you might be able to do that. What you have to do is have the employer fill out a small packet, and then they can get added to the roster of employers for work study, right? So this can also open up options not just to yourself, but to the campus community for future employment to students outside of like direct campus jobs. There are some jobs that are useful to you in direct application, you know, if you're off campus as well. So again, it's like clubs and organizations. If there isn't a job that suits you that you can get employed from, there's ways of adding additional employees to that. I just saw one question come in. The way you would obtain that is by contacting the work study, I believe, coordinator. So word of caution here. Once you start contacting work study for the Office of Financial Aid, you're going to come across Maria Galicia. That's my wife. That is not me. She is an employee of work study. And one thing that's happened in the last year or two since she's been there is that some of my students will accidentally think they're communicating with me. And so I just want y'all to understand that there are two M. Galicias on campus. I am Mario and she is Maria. So very close in names, just two different people. And just for your sake of mind, before you go down that rabbit hole. Let's see. If work study money shows up on financial aid as offered, how do you, well, you accept your work study by getting a job. So if you're able to get employment from any department on campus, it automatically starts paying you from your work study account. You don't need to do anything except bring in your employment hiring paper to, I believe, the Office of Financial Aid, and then they just start deducting it from your account. Cool, great questions. And I know that you all will have more for us in the next session when we meet again on Thursday. So look out for the journal. It'll be available in the next couple of minutes. And then it'll be due actually one day later than usual. So because I didn't have the journal open before class, I'm giving you all an additional day to work on it. Alrighty. So we'll see each other on Thursday. Thank you all for being a part of the session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
you so much. Cheerio.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye now.
Got a couple people I'm removing.
Yes. When will you grade the other journals? I guess that was a question at the end, at the very end.
Yeah, I saw it as I was starting to remove people. No, you know what? I answered that person an email.
Oh, good.
They emailed me the same question. And I just told them it varies from TA to TA depending on their schedule. And we're also accommodating your guys' graduate work and other responsibilities. So
Yeah.
I'm like, if you need an immediate answer, contact the TA that's post-graded.
Yeah.
Because I'm not grading their grades.
Do you want them unhidden then?
Their grades?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
I have
think
them
that
hidden
might
right
be,
now, just so nobody gets butthurt about not seeing that grade.
No, that's a good point.